Good afternoon, everybody. We are back with our Designing the Future initiative organized by Delta Light. And today we are going to talk about design the future for bars and restaurants. And we have the pleasure to host three experts in this field, starting from Tina Norden, partner at Conran and Partners in London, and architect and interior design portfolio of Conran and Partners stretches from hotel and restaurant design to high-end residential. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Then I introduce you to Susan Habram. Is a global lead designer at Stickman Tribe. Stickman Tribe is a Dubai-based boutique studio and specialized in concept-driven hotel and bar and restaurant interiors. And she works with leading global hospitality firms on many projects. Welcome, Susan. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Danilo.
And then, thank you. And then last but not least, Ruth Bellmans is a creative director, spatial design, spatial, not spatial, spatial. My English spelling is horrible, like typical Italian.
It's just interior design, it's fine.
Okay, good. That makes my life much easier. And in the practice, we want more. And We Know More is based in Antwerp, in Belgium, and it was founded in 2006. And this is a special firm that creates mind-bending work in interior graphic, and it's very experimental in design with the client. So welcome, Ruth, and thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot for having me.
I would like to, break the ice with a very, very simple question to the three of you. How was the past year influenced your professional life? Was there continuity of work, or was the business under pressure still after the first pandemic wave with the second one? Maybe we start with Tina.
Sure. I think mind bending is probably the best word to describe it. I think we've all been stretched in directions we never thought we'd be stretched in. But I think the exciting thing about that is just to see how we've all managed to cope. Despite all the odds, work has gone on, life has gone on. The teams have been working. We've been working with clients. So it's been fantastic to see. But needless to say, I think everybody has been suffering. No matter what industry and what kind of remit you're in. So it's been a very, very tough year, but I think one that has woken up our minds to opportunities that maybe beforehand we weren't aware of. For example, do we have to fly around the globe for one meeting, or can we actually do that online? So I think there's a number of things there that hopefully will stay with us and that have kind of, just broadened our minds a little bit to what's possible and what's not possible.
Sure, it's about rethinking and our habits of the past. Do you agree, Susan? Is that the same experience you're having?
Yeah, I think just like Tina said, it's been a struggle for all of us. But what's amazing is how we actually come together as a team and how we're able to actually increase communication, increase our creativity, even though we're not together physically. It's actually kind of benefited us in a way because we're approaching design in a different context. And I think it's been good in terms of thinking differently, and we've got some great solutions coming up from the team as a result of it.
But everybody's still working remote or back to the office already?
We're all back, yeah,
Okay.
And hopefully it'll stay this way. So we're back at it, and it's great. It's great to see everyone's faces in again.
Yeah, the warm season is also hitting the country already, so you must be in the office with air conditioning. Okay, what about Belgium, Ruud?
Well, yeah, I have to say until December last year, I think we struggled because especially for our interior design team, quite some projects were put on hold. So that's something that we definitely felt. Luckily, we also have a brand design team. So actually we have two studios in the one name. And there the work didn't stop. So that was good. So that pull is true, to be honest. And also we had a couple of projects interior design wise that started just before the first lockdown, and that pull is true. But we definitely felt it. I mean, we do interior design in hospitality and retail, and yeah, I mean, those two industries, they got like hit pretty hard. So yeah, I would be lying if I would say that we didn't feel it. But I think it's good to see. I told you like up to November, December it was difficult, but as from December on, we feel like there's a lot of interest again, and we have some new projects happening and going. So that's nice. So actually, we got through very well, but yeah, it's not. It was not a walk in the park, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that was not for everybody. It's like it or not, plus or minus. I think we all suffered from some or being partially or completely hit by this situation. Tina, since we're talking about the pandemic, has this affected the design process? Are you approaching the project differently from what it used to be 1.5 years ago, and what did it change really?
I think you can answer that in two ways, because one is just kind of physically it's different because obviously everybody's been working remotely, and as Susan was just saying earlier, you find very different ways of being able to communicate as a design team with the client, etc. So there's certainly learnings from that in terms of how do you express yourself best if you can't be sitting around a table, and how do you kind of communicate design and ideas, etc. But there's certainly learnings in terms of how we approach the actual design of projects, because there are certain things that certainly in the hospitality industry will stay with us for a while. Things like hygiene, things like circulation, things like just kind of trust in a brand, and how do we develop that? And there's a number of things that I think will, technology very importantly, are we going back to paper menus? Is it going to be a barcode going forward? So I think there's a number of things that will stay with us, that as many clever people other than me have said, it was probably an accelerator in the industry rather than a generator, but something that has brought things to the fore that have been kind of bubbling away but hadn't quite kind of made their way through.
Right. Susan, Ruud, yes, you want to?
No, I think it's been an accelerator, and I think sometimes it's not easy, but you have to take the positive side out of it. Like I told you, we had some projects put on hold, but that means that we didn't want to lose our people. That means that we had to find other ways to actually keep busy sometimes, and we used that extra time in terms of diving deeper into the very complicated issues of sustainability, for example. And I can proudly say that between 1.5 years ago and now, we've taken big steps there, and we've grown on that part, and that's a very important element. And that's something that would have taken much more time otherwise if we would have to combine it with our regular workload. So I think we had let's say 5 months to actually put full focus on that for a couple of people here. So
actually, you're also addressing a subject that it's very ethical. I really appreciate that you're mentioning that you've tried not to, let people out, and you've been diversifying your job to keep them. This is a very ethical subject that I would like to underline, because unfortunately, many companies have not been able to do that, and there are a lot of people who are let out without a job. But we have to definitely try to find a new way there. That's a subject that must be added on to the future way of dealing with the business, because we're going to find ourselves for sure with a lot of people which will end up without a job in the next 6, 8, 12 months. And so
again, I have to be honest. I mean, we didn't succeed 100% in that, because we did have to let people go. But we tried to wait as long as possible to do so, and to keep the amount of people as low as possible. So we did everything we could. And indeed, like you say, sometimes you need to find new ways of dealing with it.
Susan, what brought the pandemic to your practice? Did you look at the design from a different angle? Did you change something in your approach?
Yeah, I think we really tried to take the pandemic in a positive, and we're actually starting to look at our company, Stickman, and we're actually going through an evolution right now of our brand. So we've taken this chance to really sit back and look at ourselves and go through this journey of deconstructing ourselves and opening ourselves up to many different paths and how we can branch out and how we can, explore design as a whole. For example, we're starting to look at creating our own furniture brand and branching out to some exciting opportunities in New Zealand and Australia. So, I mean, simply put, our slogan is under the influence of creativity, and that's basically what we're going back to, our roots, and trying to see how we can push ourselves and challenge ourselves and take this as a positive spin.
But does it mean you're talking about project in Australia, New Zealand, so international project because you're based in Dubai? Has this been, let's say, a trend for you because of difficulties of having projects in your region, or that's a typical, let's say, way of working of your practice?
No, I think in terms of geography, something that we've looked at with the pandemic hitting is how we're moving into this domestic culture and the market that we're dealing with right now. Considering the parameters of the lockdown and how we were all stuck in our own little bubbles and in our own countries, in our own cities, we started looking at the market and what we have to offer within our own hometowns. And so that, being Stickman, we've got people from all over the globe, designers from everywhere. So we started looking at all these regions, and even Marcus being from Australia, we started to look at Dubai and what kind of offerings we can give to our people here. So things like glamping, there's a cabin culture, and people wanting to immerse themselves back into nature. I think there's this kind of full circle happening where we're starting to move back to nature, and that relationship with design is something that we're really excited about and exploring here. So I think the pandemic is giving us some opportunities. We just need to be mindful and open to them.
Sure. Okay, we receive also a question from our audience. I would like, Tina, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you, let's say, a tricky question that is coming from John Pablo Shepard from Mexico. How do you measure a successful concept and atmosphere to let the client understand the investment that he has to do?
Well, that is definitely a challenging question, and one that doesn't have a straightforward answer. But I think the way we work is that we try and come up with a unique story, with a unique kind of concept for every project, and everything we propose kind of fits within that concept. So in terms of explaining that to our client, I think it's very important that we take our client on the journey with us. So that means that, we involve them in the process, we discuss with them at all stages where we're going, why we're going there, making sure that they're on board with that, make sure that we're all on the same page, and allowing it to develop in that sense. There's never a big surprise. It's something that's an evolution, not a revolution at any one point. And that means that if everybody buys into that, then we can make that happen, not just from a design point of view, but very, very importantly, from an operational point of view, from a managerial point of view, from a food point of view, and making sure that all of those elements actually kind of come together. Because really, there's a triumvirate there in hospitality design. There's food, there's service, there's design. I'd like to say that design is the most important. It's not. All three of those are equally as important, if not to say that actually service and food probably is more important. So making sure that all of those come together, I think for me, that is really the secret to a successful project.
Right. And Ruud, what do you think about this? So what is your opinion, and how do you really, do you think that also for a restaurant maybe or a bar, it's more difficult to to deliver this concept to the client rather than, for example, a residence where maybe it's...
No, on the contrary, I'm afraid. I think if you're working for a restaurant or a bar, you're always working for a brand, basically. And the brand has to be something, has to be someone. And defining who that brand is going to be, that's something you can do together with the client. So you create this kind of extra person in the room if you want. And then you can always relate to that person. So does it fit that personality? And then it's an easier discussion because you're not talking about the client itself, you're talking about that person you created. If you're doing someone's residential project, which we don't do, and that's also for that reason, is that becomes very, very personal. Also, a bar and a restaurant can be very personal, but still you have that brand standing in between it. But if you're doing residential projects, it just, I think it's more difficult to take on the client in your journey. And like Tina said, it's important to take the client in the journey you're creating, because design is all about communication. And I think a lot of mistakes are made when design studios think they know better than the client. Because on some points they do, but on other points they don't. So you need to go to have a good communication, and you can't just do your stuff, throw it over the wall and expect it to be good. That's important, I think.
And Susan, how do you successfully deliver your message to your client? How do you convince them that they have to invest in your practice?
Yeah, I think for us, what we try to do is not only look at design, but when we're dealing with clients, we try to sell an experience to them. And that's something that we try to do by looking at design in tandem with creating memorable experiences. And I feel like at the end of the day, what draws people to bars, restaurants, hotels, anywhere really, in general, and the spaces that we create, is the experience. What are they taking away from this place, and what can we offer to people that they haven't seen before, something different from the norm?
Okay. I will now turn a little bit to the table around, and I'll start with the Ruud this time. What other key trends and evolution do you see as becoming important in F&B design? Do you have any material, any solution that you came across recently that you feel that is going to make a difference?
Well, I don't think it's about the specific material. I'd like to think that every project deserves its own focus and uniqueness. So I don't like to talk in terms of
material or technology, or
I do think that, and I think it was Susan who also mentioned it, that we have this, we have found back or we value nature again much more than we used to, because we spent quite some time in it the last couple of months, because that's the only thing we could do. And I think that's going to reflect as well in design languages as well. I think what we call wabi-sabi, so like the finding beauty in the imperfections, that's something will be seen in a lot of projects, I think. Also because it's kind of a reaction to that kind of medical state we've been in for the last year and a half. Everything was medical and needed to be clean and sterile. And so I think we're gonna really like love the imperfections in certain materials and designs, I think.
So the new material is imperfection.
I think so.
Tina, what is your opinion? Is something that has hit your brain recently more than anything else?
I think what's been very interesting is that much of the conversation more recently has been about authenticity, has been about creating experiences that people can kind of relate to, that resonates with people, that are kind of more local, more kind of specific to, to a location. Whether that is kind of, a hotel restaurant having its own farm and growing its own food, or getting its food from local sources, etc. I think there's an awareness of things coming from far away, and is that really necessary? Should that be the case? Should we be concentrating more on what's actually good in our own kind of closer up environment, which obviously is a result of the pandemic, no question about it. You know, obviously we're still going to be wanting to go and have Mexican food or whatever it might be here in London, but I think it's just more of an awareness of provenance, and I think that goes also back to something Ruud was saying earlier. The awareness of sustainable materiality comes just as much into that as where the food comes from, you know, as where the service staff comes from, whatever it is. I think just a refocus on things that are authentic and that come from the heart and that come from a place of kind of someone really trying to do something, you know, with full passion behind it.
Yes, so as you said, sustainability becomes a key in that sense. So
in all senses of that word, you know, because it's many things. So
absolutely, Susan, what is your opinion about this? And maybe, you know, we could also introduce also the subject of the sustainability, which is something that, of course, how much is a client, let's say, focused on sustainability as a priority nowadays? Yes or no? We're still a starting block.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you, Tina and Ruud. I think, you know, we are going in a full circle, and I think another thing to realize is that people are also becoming very health conscious, and part of that process, especially within F&B itself, is, you know, paying attention to the rise of diets, right? Ketogenic, veganism, people placing a lot of importance on wellness. Sorry. Yeah, so I think that evolution has really gone full circle, and we're starting to question, you know, what we eat, how we cook, where it's from, and introducing things like hydroponic systems within our F&B offerings. It's something that we integrated in one of our projects in the ADD for Hotel Gen, Beijing, and just the idea of having like assurance of quality of food, and yeah, I think that's something that everyone's kind of interested in, and it's going to lend itself into how we sustain ourselves in our offerings here.
But are clients becoming more focused on sustainability, on real sustainability? Because well, sometimes, you know, it's like you feel like it's a trend, and the people, when really they really not feeling for that, just it's a sort of let's say trend, just to, you know, to follow the society, or and then when they've discovered they have to spend more to make a project sustainable, they start to be doubtful about it.
Yeah, to be honest, if a client puts focus on sustainability because he wants to do it because of the trend or he really believes in it, I don't really care. So at least there is the word sustainability is within the brief, so that's good. It's our responsibility, I think, to live up to it and not look at it as a trend, and actually, come up with a real sustainable project. And I don't agree that I used to, but I don't anymore. After this year and a half, I don't agree anymore that it should be more expensive. I think if we call ourselves designers, that means that we think of ourselves as creative and problem solving. So if you have enough knowledge about sustainability, and then I'm just talking about the production side and the material side, I'm not talking about well-being yet, because that's another topic. But then I think if you have enough knowledge about that, we should be able to come up with beautiful solutions that fit the brief and are fully sustainable. Well, fully sustainable, very sustainable, let's say. And then if the client did ask it out of a commercial point of view, yeah, so be it. But then at least we had a real sustainable answer to it.
Okay, I have to apologize with our speakers if I am too provocative today. Okay.
No, but I think you're right.
That's good.
It's good that you call it like this, because I think it's true for a lot of times. But yeah, It's the designer's responsibility to actually deal with it in a proper way.
Well, sustainability, it's a very, very important topics, I would say, in general, not only related to bar and restaurant, of course. But of course, what I said earlier about maybe increased cost is simply because we are facing, and I'm telling this for the audience, maybe don't know that in full, but the whole world is facing at the moment a big increase in cost of raw materials, which are turning into increased cost in projects, in completion of projects. So there are scarce availability of a lot of material, and therefore this is something that I can bring from my experience, written experience. Sometimes people drops some themes that were absolutely fundamental in the initial concept of the project because of the increased cost. That was the meaning of what I was saying. But I think that we had to explain to our audience because not everybody knows the current situation of raw materials worldwide. So I will ask to Tina a question about again we have some very interesting questions coming in. So what would be your definition of good quality lighting in a bar or in a restaurant? This is coming from Kai Dideriksen from Mexico again.
We have a very great audience in Mexico, which I'm pleased to hear.
Yeah,
so I think lighting, to my mind, is absolutely fundamental in hospitality, and the very reason for that is that it creates atmosphere. And I think that's where lighting is fundamental in creating a space and in creating that kind of ambience and atmosphere that you want to create. Now, that could be bright and airy if you're talking about an all-day dining restaurant. That could be moody and atmospheric if you're talking about a late-night bar or whatever it might be. So you're really using lighting as a tool to create the kind of sensibility, the kind of atmosphere that we're aiming for, just as much as we would layouts, materiality, furniture, etc. So it is absolutely fundamental and cannot be divided. I think you can destroy the most beautifully designed space by having the wrong lighting in it. So it couldn't be more important. And this is both the hidden light, what I mean with that is the architecture lighting, so concealed lighting in the ceiling, in joinery, or whatever it is, as well as obviously the lighting that we call FF&E lighting, so that the visible lighting that is more of a feature in the space.
The more decorative one.
The more decorative lighting, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and you use a specific technology like dimming or something that you
all
like?
Of it.
Okay.
All of it. I mean, dimming is hugely important. I think particularly in hospitality, we usually, whichever lighting consultant we work with many very talented people, but it's about creating different scenes through the day. And I think that's particularly important in hospitality. You will have a setting in the morning when people come for breakfast, which needs to be very different to an early evening or late evening setting. So it's very important that you can adjust the lighting to suit the time of the day, the mood of the day. And also that allows restaurants, particularly when we're talking about all-day dining, as Susan mentioned earlier, to kind of seg from one time of the day and from one mood of the day into the next one. And lighting can do that almost on its own.
So thank you. And Susan, what is your opinion there? How much you think light can be emotional in a restaurant and bar project? Is that important? And how would you look at that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it's not just about having, when we think about lighting, we think about the progression of light, just how we think about the progression of the guest journey through a space. There needs to be highs and lows, and this will just ultimately create that dramatic effect that we as designers are always looking for within our spaces. And then just touching on what Tina mentioned, which is, basically we're looking at circadian lighting, right? And how spaces relate to that. Do we follow the natural wake and sleep cycles when we look at spaces? How does that kind of translate into the moods that we're evoking with our guests in spaces, right? Sometimes we look at how we can positively affect health and productivity with people, and lighting plays a huge part in that role.
Well, of course, when I definitely agree with you, and I think the best lighting project is a project where people enter space and have a positive feeling about the space without understanding that the light has contributed to that. That would be the best achievement for a good lighting projects. Ruud, in your projects, you have the same type of approach? You feel the same like Tina and Susan, or you would like to add anything else?
Definitely. I think it's very important. And I'm thinking about a project that Tina and myself, we had to judge for the frame awards. And there was one project, and they were talking about creating the right kind of darkness. And that was beautiful. I mean, it was just a good way of putting it, because you only can appreciate darkness when you also have the right light in another place, and that contrast was very, very beautiful.
As Louis Kahn used to say, you can understand the power of the light at the moment it's striking the corner of a building and is casting the shadow, and then this contrast between light and shadow is what makes the three dimension of the space. So I think that I agree with you that darkness is equally important than lighting. And in a restaurant, this is even more so, I would say.
Definitely. And I also think that we were talking about the brand of a restaurant before, and I think that the light setup, or the light temperature, or the light technicality needs to be part of the brand identity. And now I think sometimes people still look at it more like something technical. And you can create a mood with it, but I think you can go more extreme with lighting, so it becomes like a very distinctive part of your brand as well. So I think we can even be more creative with it.
Absolutely, it's another building material. Let's put it this way. So actually, I remember. It remembers me of something that in some years ago was following the UK research, which was pretty interesting because people were tasting some food and under different type of lighting, okay, and they would have a different perception of the same thing. For some it was more salty, for some it was sweeter, and apparently this was due to the type of illumination that you would have in the room. You remember that too, Tina? I think it was something from London. Somebody was.
Super interesting. And I mean, there even used to be a couple of restaurants, certainly one in New York, where it was completely black, pitch black. So you ate in the dark. And actually the experience of dining in the dark and how you actually perceive food when you can't even see it is so interesting. And the whole kind of thing about the eye eats with you. As you, there's a German saying that basically says that das Auge ist mit. It's so true, because the way your plate looks, there's a reason why chefs pay so much attention to how things look on a plate, because that is very much part of your experience.
Absolutely. Can we speak also a little bit about, this is another question we got this time from Belgium, not from Mexico. It's from Jelle Nails.
Jelle.
Jelle Nails. You know okay. Maybe she sent the question especially for you, Ruud. So, can delivery courier come in via the front door, or do you create different kiss and ride zone for them? That's an interesting question, because I think that it's typical of this moment. That's we've seen the increase of this delivery courier at the doors of each restaurant, and for sure is something that I'm pretty sure it will continue in the future, because people now start to become, they took this habit of having food at home, and there will be certainly still a part of the clientele will continue to have this service. So have you thought about this, Ruud, in your project?
Yes, actually we have, and I think to start with, it's quite simple. And so people have been investing in their homes, like home improvement. They have been investing in cooking lessons and whatever, in cooking material. And So they're not going to just drop it. They also appreciate family time again at home, family dinners. So takeout, dinner, and delivery is definitely going to stay at this level. I mean, it's very important. And also think that we should foresee it in our projects. Like now, because the part of delivery was growing, you had indeed like these queues of delivery guys queuing in the restaurant itself. But there will be, if you have a restaurant, if you have different restaurants, let's talk about a chain or so, then they will just have pickup restaurants and dine-in restaurants as well. We are creating this for one brand that we started creating time ago, Manhattan's. It's a burger restaurant. And now actually in Brussels, since last year, we're doing their first takeout restaurant with exactly the same feel and brand image and vibe. But it's like basically it's a big billboard in the street, but it's small. It's smaller than a regular restaurant. If you don't have that opportunity to have different places, I think you should really consider in your restaurant to have maybe a different entrance, a waiting zone for the pickup guys. I think it's important that you cannot, you have to kind of split it up so that the experience of the people dining in does not get ruined in a way by these big backpacks.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes, people go to the restaurant to have some intimacy or anyway stay with the friends and not being, not. I don't think it's nice to see this queue of delivery courier in front of the door or outside, even outside, waiting for the food.
Smoking.
So, yes, anything.
But on the other side, the restaurant should embrace them because it's going to be an important part of their revenue.
Sure. For sure, Susan, this is not happening in Dubai because if the people stay outside, they're waiting for the food, they get cooked themselves during the season. And so, but what is your opinion about this? Is something that you have already, thought in your projects?
Yeah, it is just like Red said, this is something we have to integrate, inside and out. And also just moving into this concept of this touchless experience, right? When it comes to checking into lobbies, POS systems in F&Bs, payments, QR codes on menus like Tina mentioned. These are all little factors that we're starting to look at and integrate, not just for restaurants and F&Bs, but for the whole hotel hospitality experience and even workplace, right?
Absolutely. Tina, anything to add to this from your view?
Just to say, I mean, there's been something coming to prominence here over the last year and a half, which is basically kind of restaurant kits, which I personally really enjoyed. I don't like takeaways. I don't like cold food. It's not something I enjoy very much. But a lot of restaurants, particularly restaurants that actually had a name, well-known chef, whoever, were offering cook-at-home kits that you would basically order. Everything is pre-prepared. You just need to kind of cook it yourself, warm it up effectively. That's something that we've certainly enjoyed and that's seen a huge growth. And that also ties in with something else that's been talked about in the industry a lot, which is dark kitchens, who could produce exactly that. So that means that rather than it being a takeaway that the chef cooks and needs to be taken warm to someone immediately, it's actually something that you pre-order that gets delivered to you maybe in the morning or something like that. Then that can be made either in the same kitchen before service or can be made in a dark kitchen, as they call it, so something that is not front of house related. And that is actually much more sustainable also, because it means that restaurants know exactly what produce they need, who's ordered something. So whatever they buy, they know will go exactly to where it goes. And they can maybe utilize a space that otherwise would be lying dormant in the morning to prepare for this. So I think that's an interesting avenue for restaurants to take, and one that for me has a lot of legs.
Well, at least is an interesting development for the future.
Yeah.
Although it will imply rethinking the idea of a restaurant, and rethinking the food industry to some extent, because of course it's a completely different way of approaching. This is not even takeaway. It's a different frontier.
No, that's right. That's right.
and how do clients react to these trends? Investors, I mean, they follow, they still keep their traditional expectation. How do your client
I think it's kept a lot of restaurants afloat over the last year and a half, particularly during the, certainly in the UK, complete lockdowns when restaurants were not allowed to open at all. Obviously doing something like that, whether it's takeaway or restaurant kits or whatever it is, it gave them a bit of a lifeline to have at least some of the staff working to kind of keep going, if that makes sense, and get some money through the door. And I think a lot of them have realized that if they do it in certain ways, they can actually continue to do that. And what's been quite interesting is that a number of the kind of more kind of I guess food orientated, more kind of specific restaurants have given up on doing takeaway, but are still doing the restaurant kits because they can fit that around still serving an excellent lunchtime or dinner service with actually providing those food kits and getting more money in by doing that at different times of the day where it doesn't interfere with the normal service. Because I think that's quite often the issue with restaurants. If you're trying to do takeaway orders as well as serving the people that are sitting in your dining room, it's difficult. There's a lot to juggle. All of a sudden you're catering for twice the amount of people or more or whatever. And that's a completely different setup and completely different, requirements for the kitchen spaces.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a severe evolution in the industry. So this might change the industry, I would say, dramatically. Ruud, I mean, this is a little bit for everybody. The three of you work for multidisciplinary practices. Do you see nowadays implemented by the pandemic or not directly related to the pandemic, that there are crossover in the different disciplines on the type of project that your practice does, something in common among these discipline, and do you stimulate that in your team, Ruud?
Yeah, definitely. We stimulate it, but I think it's everybody does it quite out of himself, I think, because we work on different projects. Like a designer can work on a retail project and a hospitality project at the same time. And I think a long time, for example, retail has been looking at hospitality to take some hospitality cues over in the retail business. I think now, and especially when I talk about technology, it could go the other way. I think retail has integrated technology in different ways, and I'm not just talking about online presence or online ordering, but also how to integrate technology within the store, so within the restaurant. I think there's definitely a huge win to gain there if you look at retail, for example. More literally, we're currently working on some projects that actually combine wellness and restaurant and retail in one. So we just have delivered a beer spa, for example. So it's a bar meets wellness, or wellness meets bar, how you call it. But I think those fusion of those industries will happen more, I think, also because consumers, they will be looking for that. If they don't stay at home, they want that once in a lifetime experience in a way, and so it will become more creative, I think, and that means I think by definition that you will have to combine different industries.
Right. Susan, what is your opinion about this? Do you also, let's say, in your practice stimulate this crossover in disciplines? Certainly not that the beer wellness in Dubai, I'm pretty sure.
No, it's in Brussels.
Maybe something else. Maybe something else.
Yeah, I think we're seeing ergonomics really blur the lines of a singular functioning space. I think we already started looking at the lobby, right, for example, and how that turns into a meeting place or a restaurant or a workspace. And I think ergonomics is going to play that major role in creating a multifunctional ability in the spaces. And from F&B, I think we can learn from this and use the space not just for dining, for example, but for other functions. Technology will also play a part in this, creating USB ports into tables and integrating all these elements together so that people can work, play, drink, you know, basically have the flexibility of function within a space.
Right. Tina, you have the same type of experience and idea in your practice, or?
I mean, we've always kind of been a crossover practice ever since we started. Our founder is that, you know, it comes from furniture design, moved to become a restaurateur, then went into kind of living. So we've kind of always had that right at the core of what we do. We do architecture and interior design, so there's that crossover, which I find really fascinating and interesting, doing both actually myself. So I think it is the future. I think our lives are much more crossed over anyway, in every sense of the word. And obviously last year and a half, work and life certainly have crossed over rather more than we would have liked to have done that. But I think that is here to stay. And I think people want to be able to do a number of different things in different environments. And I think that's where we can draw from experience we have on residential for hospitality, where we can draw on experience that we have from workplace into residential, and all of those kind of things. And I think that's really important. And that is really kind of human life and human experience these days, I think.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. Well, we're getting close to, let's say, the end of our conversation. So I would like, to conclude asking maybe to each one of you if you can tell the audience something exciting about your work for the future, and maybe also a final thought or message that you want to share with them. It's let's say the audience, it's always a mix of different disciplines, but I think that there are a lot of interior design and architects and lighting designer from all over the world, so they would like, of course, to hear your opinion or what you would like to share for the future. Let's start with Tina again, and
I would really say that for me, it's very important that we use the experiences of the last year and a half to kind of learn from and draw from and kind of take something positive out of. It's all very simple to sit there and say, oh my God, this was like a complete disaster. But I think there's many things there that have been positive, many things that made me think, that made us think, many things that influenced the way we worked. And I think it's important we don't forget that experience, because I think so often, things happen to us and we're so eager to move on and kind of go back to normal, whatever that means. I think keeping some of those lessons and remembering how we felt and remembering how things developed in these last kind of year and a half, and how it's actually brought us more together in many ways as human beings. I think that for me is very important. That influences both how we work as a team, how we work with our clients, how we work as an industry, and just remembering these days and making sure that they don't kind of, they don't go to waste.
Thank you very much. Susan, I leave it to you, a message for the audience and something exciting we can expect in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is an exciting time in design because, with things slowly opening up again, I think people are really craving and have that desire to travel. And so as designers, I think this is our time to, reinvent the wheel and provide amazing experiences for people to get back into and enjoy. I think one thing to remember, like Tina touched on, is, to remember to support our local F&Bs, our hospitality industries, and not get caught up in the whirlwind that will come.
Right. Thank you very much. And we conclude with the same question for Ruud. A message to the audience, a suggestion to the audience for the future, and something that we can expect from you guys as an exciting new thing.
Well, I'm gonna. It's been said by Tina and Susan. I think it's a very strong value here within We Want More is positivism. I see myself also as a positive person. I do know that it's been tough on lots of people, both financially, but also mentally. I think we have to not forget this. So I think it's been really hard for lots of people. but there's always something good to take out of it, and I think we need to focus on that. And these kind of times and crises, they're accelerate, like we said in the beginning, and they're an accelerator for change that would have happened maybe anyway, but would have taken much longer. And so I think that will be the positive outcome of this, that much needed change will happen much faster now. Although we had to put a big effort into it, but we all did. But I think, yeah, let's not let it go to waste. I think that's an important one. And in terms of yeah, exciting things to happen, yeah, we are kind of excited with the new projects we have now. We are working on an M gallery, for example, an M gallery boutique resorts by Accor in Eastern Europe. So that gives us the reason to travel, which is always fun. Yeah, there's more hotel projects like Mövenpick and stuff like that. So I think it's good to see that the market is picking up again, and we're enjoying that a lot.
Thank you very much. And with this final message, of course, I want to wish Tina, Susan, and Ruud all the best for their future activities. And thank you very much for participating to our talk. And I thank the audience for their attention. And I remind you the next chapter of Design in the Future that will be back on the 15th of September with the subject of offices and home offices. And so thank you very much again for your attention. Thank you for the speakers' availability. And again, all the best and speak soon. Take care.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.